Where do Ethiopians actually come from? It sounds like a simple question, but for more than a century, no one could fully agree on the answer. Are Ethiopians the direct descendants of some of Africa's oldest human populations? People whose ancestors lived in the Horn of Africa since prehistoric times? Or are they the result of multiple waves of migration from Africa, the Middle East, and beyond, that slowly blended over thousands of years into one of the most unique genetic populations on Earth? Historians have argued, archaeologists have debated, linguists have built entire theories around this question, because Ethiopia is not just another country on the map, it is one of the oldest continuously inhabited regions in the world. A land of mountains, plateaus, deserts, ancient cities and trade routes that connected Africa to Arabia and the wider ancient world. But today, DNA evidence is beginning to provide clearer answers, and what it reveals is far more surprising than most people expected. In this video, we trace the genetic story of Ethiopia from the earliest humans who walked the Rift Valley through ancient African hunter-gatherers, the rise of Cushitic and Semitic-speaking populations, contacts across the Red Sea, and the deep mixture events that created the people of modern Ethiopia. We cover why Ethiopia contains some of the oldest genetic lineages on Earth, why many Ethiopians carry ancestry linked to both Africa and Western Eurasia, how geography preserved extraordinary diversity, and why the idea of a single Ethiopian DNA type is scientifically impossible. When people hear the word DNA, they often imagine percentages on a test or colored maps online. But Ethiopian genetics are something much deeper. They are a biological archive, because some of the oldest chapters of the human story were written here. The Ethiopian highlands and surrounding regions sit close to where anatomically modern humans first emerged in Africa. Fossils discovered in the Horn region have played a major role in understanding human origins. Long before nations existed, before languages were written, before history had names, human communities were already adapting to these lands. That matters genetically. Populations that remain in a region for very long periods often preserve ancient lineages, rare branches of ancestry, and evidence of migrations that later disappeared elsewhere. Ethiopia became one of those places. Its geography helped make that possible. Towering mountains separated valleys, harsh lowlands created barriers. Isolated plateaus allowed communities to remain distinct for centuries. At the same time, the Red Sea opened a gateway toward Arabia, Egypt, and the Near East. So Ethiopia was both protected and connected. Few countries combined those two forces at the same time. This is one reason Ethiopian DNA appears so unusual in global studies. Instead of one dominant ancestral source, researchers repeatedly find layers: very old East African ancestry, deep regional African ancestry, later West Eurasian-related ancestry, and local mixing events that differ from region to region. The result is extraordinary complexity, and that complexity can even be seen in adaptation. Take altitude, for example. Millions of Ethiopians have lived for generations in highland environments where oxygen levels are lower. Scientists studying human adaptation have found that some Ethiopian populations developed biological responses to altitude different from those seen in Tibetans or Andean populations. In other words, separate human groups solved the same environmental challenge through different genetic pathways. That is remarkable. It means Ethiopian DNA does not just preserve history, it records innovation. Then there's disease resistance, metabolism, and immune adaptation. Communities living in different ecological zones faced different parasites, climates, food systems, and pathogens. Over thousands of years, natural selection shaped local genomes in subtle ways. When you look at Ethiopian DNA, you are not seeing a static population. You are seeing a long experiment in human survival across mountains, deserts, forests, and trade crossroads. Modern Ethiopia is home to more than 120 million people and contains dozens of ethnic groups and languages. Afro-Asiatic languages such as Amharic, Oromo, Somali, Afar, Sidamo, and Tigrinya exist beside Nilo-Saharan groups and others. Each reflects movement, contact, and ancestry over long stretches of time. So to ask where Ethiopians come from is already the wrong question, because there was never one single beginning. There were many beginnings, and the deeper science goes, the more fascinating the answer becomes. To understand why Ethiopian DNA is so unique, we need to begin with geography, because geography often writes genetics before history ever does. Ethiopia sits in the Horn of Africa, one of the most strategically important regions on Earth. To the west lie the Nile-connected lands of northeastern Africa. To the south stretch the routes toward East Africa and the Great Rift Valley. To the east sits the Red Sea corridor leading directly into Arabia. To the north are links towards Egypt and the Mediterranean world. Few places on Earth stand at the meeting point of so many human pathways. That matters because people move. They move during droughts, wars, trade expansions, pastoral migrations, farming revolutions, and climate shifts. Every movement leaves traces in language, culture, and sometimes DNA. Ethiopia received many of them. But unlike open plains where one population can rapidly replace another, Ethiopia's interior is broken by mountains, escarpments, deep valleys, and elevated plateaus. These landscapes can slow movement and preserve diversity. Communities living only short distances apart may remain genetically distinct for long periods if rivers, cliffs, or terrain limit contact.
This helps explain why Ethiopia contains so much internal variation. In some countries, national identity roughly overlaps with a narrower genetic profile. In Ethiopia, that model breaks down quickly. Different regions can preserve very different ancestry combinations. Highland groups may show one historical pattern, lowland pastoral populations another, border communities yet another. This does not mean separation forever. It means cycles of isolation followed by contact. And those cycles are exactly what create rich genetic mosaics. Language gives us another clue. Many Ethiopian groups speak Afro-Asiatic languages, one of the world's major language families. This includes Semitic branches such as Amharic and Tigrinya, Cushitic branches such as Oromo, Afar, and Somali, and Omotic languages spoken mainly in southwestern Ethiopia. That alone tells us Ethiopia was never culturally simple. Three major branches of one vast language family meeting inside one country suggests deep time depth, migration, and interaction. Languages often spread with people, but not always. Sometimes populations adopt new languages without major genetic replacement. Other times, newcomers mix with locals and reshape both speech and ancestry. Ethiopia shows signs of both processes across history. Then there is trade. Ancient caravan routes moved incense, gold, ivory, animals, grain, iron, and ideas across this region. Ports across the Red Sea linked African and Arabian societies long before the modern era. The kingdom of Aksum emerged as one of the great powers of late antiquity, trading with Rome, Arabia, Persia, and India. Trade routes do more than move goods. They move genes. Merchants settle, families intermarry, refugees relocate, armies remain, religious communities migrate. Over centuries, even modest contact can leave measurable genetic signals. That is one reason researchers detect West Eurasian-related ancestry in several Ethiopian populations. It does not point to one invasion or one simple event. More likely, it reflects repeated interactions over long periods, some prehistoric and others historic. At the same time, Ethiopia retained strong continuity with indigenous African ancestry far older than those contacts. So the story is not replacement, it is layering. Another reason Ethiopian DNA fascinates scientists is timing. Many regions of the world experienced recent large-scale homogenization through empires, industrial migration, or massive colonial settlement. Ethiopia, despite invasions and political change, often preserved local continuity more than many other states. That continuity can help ancient signals survive into the present. In practical terms, Ethiopia became a living archive of multiple eras at once. Some genetic components may trace back to very ancient African populations, others to pastoral expansions, others to contacts across the Red Sea, others to medieval and early modern mixing among neighboring communities. This is why broad labels fail. Saying Ethiopian DNA as if it were one thing is like saying European DNA without distinguishing Scandinavia, Iberia, the Balkans, or the Caucasus. It hides more than it reveals. And yet, despite all that diversity, Ethiopia also shows long-standing connections tying many communities together. Shared geography, intertwined history, overlapping ancestry, and centuries of interaction. So uniqueness does not come from purity, it comes from complexity. The next question, then, is where the deepest layers came from. To answer that, we have to go back tens of thousands of years, into a world before Ethiopia, before kingdoms, and before recorded memory. Long before there was an Ethiopia, there were people living in the lands that would one day become it, and some of them belonged to populations among the oldest ancestors of humanity still traceable today. The Horn of Africa lies close to regions central to the story of modern human origins. For scientists, this matters enormously, because when human populations first expanded within Africa and later beyond it, northeastern Africa likely played a geographic role. It was not a remote corner of the world. It was one of the great crossroads of prehistory. This means the ancestors of many Ethiopian populations may preserve lineages connected to some of the earliest branches of modern human diversity. That does not mean any living group is unchanged from ancient times. No population remains frozen in history. Everyone changes, everyone mixes, everyone evolves. But some regions keep deeper echoes than others. Ethiopia is one of them. Hunter-gatherer communities once occupied landscapes across the Horn, long before farming or kingdoms emerged. They adapted to rivers, highlands, grasslands, and seasonal climates. Over thousands of years, these groups separated, reconnected, and diversified genetically. Then climate shifts changed everything. During wetter periods, lands that are dry today supported more movement and settlement. During harsher eras, people concentrated near reliable water and fertile zones. These expansions and contractions repeatedly reshaped human networks across East Africa. Each cycle left marks in DNA. This is one reason African genetics are so rich and complex. Human populations lived in Africa far longer than anywhere else, giving more time for branches, mixtures, and adaptation to accumulate. Ethiopia, positioned in East Africa yet linked to multiple ecological zones, became one of the places where this complexity remained especially visible. Some Ethiopian groups today carry ancestry connected to ancient East African foragers and pastoral peoples, whose descendants shaped later populations across the region. Then came one of the most important transitions in human history: food production. Pastoralism and agriculture changed population size, movement patterns, and social organization. Communities with cattle, goats, sheep, and cultivated crops could support larger settlements. They spread languages, technologies, and genes. In the Horn, pastoral lifeways became especially important. Mobile herding communities could move through semi-arid landscapes where farming alone was difficult. This likely contributed to later expansions of Cushitic-speaking populations and other groups across Ethiopia and neighboring regions. But unlike simple textbook models, older populations did not just disappear, they mixed. Again and again, Ethiopia's history is not about one people replacing another. It's about newcomers meeting established communities and creating something new. Ancient DNA studies across Africa are still developing because hot climates often damage genetic material faster than colder regions. That means the African prehistoric record is improving, but still incomplete. Even so, the data already suggest repeated population interactions rather than isolated origins, and Ethiopia stands near the center of that story. There is another reason these ancient layers matter. Physical traits can be misleading. People often assume they can look at faces, skin tones, or body types and infer ancient ancestry. Genetics repeatedly shows that is unreliable. Similar traits can evolve independently or emerge from mixed populations. Deep ancestry often hides beneath appearances. Ethiopia demonstrates this powerfully. Its people display wide physical diversity, yet many communities share complex ancestral threads invisible to the eye.
Then there is endurance. Some populations in Ethiopia maintain continuity in the same broad regions for very long periods, compared with many places repeatedly depopulated or heavily replaced. That continuity allows older ancestry signals to remain detectable today. So when scientists analyze Ethiopian DNA, they are not just studying one modern nation, they are reading layers of human time, Stone Age foragers, early herders, ancient regional networks, and populations whose roots stretch back toward the earliest chapters of Homo sapiens. But one of the biggest surprises comes later, because Ethiopian genomes also contain ancestry linked beyond Africa, signals that point across the Red Sea and into the ancient Near East. How did that happen? That is where the story becomes even more fascinating. At first glance, Ethiopia's mountains can make the country seem isolated. But for thousands of years, Ethiopia was never cut off from the outside world. It was connected by water. The narrow Red Sea corridor separating Africa from Arabia is not an impossible barrier. In some places, it is a short maritime crossing compared with many ocean voyages ancient people regularly made. Winds, seasonal currents, and coastal navigation allowed contact long before modern ships existed. That contact changed history, and it left traces in DNA. When genetic studies found that several Ethiopian populations carry a measurable component related to ancient West Eurasian ancestry, many people misunderstood what that meant. Some imagined one dramatic migration that suddenly transformed the region. Science points to something more realistic: multiple contacts across long periods. Some of these interactions may date back several thousand years, possibly involving movements linked to the Near East after farming societies expanded. Others may reflect Bronze Age or Iron Age exchanges through Arabia. Still others may connect to historical trade, settlement, and religious networks during the eras of South Arabian states and the Kingdom of Aksum. In short, no single moment explains it all. Layering does. Archaeology supports this broader picture. The Horn of Africa and Southern Arabia exchanged crops, livestock, technologies, writing influences, and commercial ties across antiquity. Cultural contact of that scale often includes human movement. Sometimes families relocate, sometimes merchants stay, sometimes elites intermarry, sometimes entire communities cross in small numbers over generations. Even modest migration repeated for centuries can create lasting genetic signals. That matters because people often imagine ancestry as all or nothing, either foreign or native, either original or replaced. Real history is rarely like that. A population can remain overwhelmingly rooted in local African ancestry while also incorporating external ancestry through long-term interaction. Both things can be true at once. Ethiopia is one of the clearest examples. Some Ethiopian groups show stronger West Eurasian-related signals than others. That variation itself is important. It suggests contact affected regions differently depending on geography, trade access, politics, and historical movement. Highland centers connected to state networks may show one pattern, peripheral or more isolated communities another. Again, diversity is the rule. Language history also became entangled with these movements. Semitic languages in Ethiopia, including Amharic and Tigrinya, belong to a branch whose wider relatives are found in the Near East. That does not mean language equals genes in a simple one-to-one way, but it does indicate ancient connections between populations across the Red Sea world. Languages can spread through migration, trade prestige, religion, administration, or intermarriage. Usually, it's some combination. The same is true genetically. And while outside ancestry entered Ethiopia, influence moved the other way as well. African populations likely contributed genes, goods, and culture into Arabia through the same networks. Ancient exchange was never one-directional, it was reciprocal. This is why Ethiopia frustrates simplistic racial categories invented in later centuries. It does not fit neat boxes separating Africa from Eurasia as if they were sealed worlds. Historically, the Horn was one of the bridges between them. That bridge produced something unique, not European, not Middle Eastern, not reducible to any outside label, distinctly Ethiopian in its own historical development. Modern genetics also reminds us that external ancestry components in Ethiopia are old. They are not recent overlays sitting on top of an untouched base. In many communities, these mixtures happened so long ago that they became part of the foundational ancestry of later populations. They are now ancient Ethiopian history themselves. So when someone asks whether Ethiopians are African or Middle Eastern, the question collapses under evidence. Ethiopians are African populations with their own deep local roots, shaped additionally by long interaction with neighboring regions, then reshaped again and again by geography, language shifts, trade networks, and internal mixing across thousands of years. Its mountains preserved diversity, its trade routes invited connection, its people adapted to altitude, climate, disease, and changing worlds in ways scientists are still uncovering. There is no single Ethiopian DNA type. What exists instead is something far more powerful. A population history of extraordinary depth. A living archive where prehistoric Africa, ancient Red Sea exchange, and regional human resilience all meet in the same genome. That's why Ethiopian DNA stands out in global research. Not because it is pure, but because it is layered, ancient, and complex. And perhaps that's the real lesson of genetics everywhere. The strongest identities aren't built from isolation, they are built from history. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more stories on genetic origins, ancient migrations, and the hidden history inside human DNA.